Hello and welcome back to the Grimm Reader. This is the Grimm Chronicles. I think it's number 7. And this is my weekly chat about what I have read this week and a few other things, not too much. Did want to give a quick update. So last week the beginning of the week was dominated by the fact that one of our cats was ill, Mr. T, and he's made a full recovery. And we're very happy about that, of course. And what occurred to me is one of the reasons I was so kind of upset by the whole experience was that in my experience we've had about, well, I counted them, we've had 5. We've had and then had to say goodbye to 5 cats by now, and now we're on we have these 4, but we've had 5 other ones that we've had to say goodbye to, and none of them, they all were older for one thing, and they all got sick and didn't get better. And so in my experience, cats don't get better. And so I'm a bit surprised that he had, and I think the main thing is he had a bad flu and a high fever, and the high fever made him very, very weak and unhappy. And I just thought, he doesn't want to live anymore, but he came back pretty quickly and pretty much on his own. I mean, there wasn't that much. They gave him a shot for the dehydration, and he was supposed to take antibiotics, but that didn't go so well. And that's really just in case of opportunistic infections. Doesn't really do anything for the flu. So he kind of it ran its course. And I'm going to check back with them because I do think he may have some asthma stuff going on, and I believe that it may well have to do with the fact that he is an indoor-outdoor kitty. I mean, if I had my druthers, I would keep them all inside, but he came from a situation where he was kept inside with dogs and lots of kids and lots of kind of chaos, and so he's very skittish about not being let out. And then he kind of came to us and started sort of hanging out and seeing that we have cats, and I actually never thought I thought he would always be an outdoor kitty and never come inside. But then one summer when it was really hot and he's he likes his creature comforts, as actually when I was in Germany, Bill started letting him in even more. I thought and now he's completely inside, and then he just goes outside too. So he's our cat. I never really thought that would happen, the transition. Anyway, enough about Mr. T. Moving on to the books. So this is the first week, I think, well, not the first entirely, but I did not finish a book. But I still have to talk about what I have been reading and the progress I've made, and I'm looking for my little page of notes or scribbles here. And so let's see, where to begin. Let's just start with Anna Karenina, which is going to be a favorite book of mine, I think. I really, really enjoy it. To me, it reads like there's this term in German, just translated society novel, Gesellschaftsroman. So I do kind of find myself a little bit echoes of this German writer whom I love, Theodor Fontane. And even, of course, because of the topic of adultery, Madame Bovary, which I would like to reread, so Flaubert. And I really like the sort of internal-external approach. And so one of the prime examples of an internal sort of stream of consciousness scene that I just wanted to kind of remind people of if you've read the book, or just tell you about if you haven't. It occurs on 101 when Anna Karenina is coming back from Moscow, so coming back to her family life, her normal life, after having this encounter with Vronsky. And she's in the train, and something really strange happens to her. She kind of starts hallucinating almost, or just going in and out of consciousness, and she isn't sure about the objects in her environment, and it's just described in kind of a artistic way. She felt her nerves tighten more and more like strings on winding pegs. She felt her eyes open wider and wider, her fingers and toes move nervously. Something inside her stopped her breath, and all images and sounds in the wavering semi-darkness impressed themselves on her with extraordinary vividness. And it's an extraordinary scene, and it's the first of its kind in the whole book. And And then, and it ends with her going out of the train at a stop and getting some fresh air and running into Vronsky. So, and I guess the sense of this that I'm getting from all of this is it gets even more wacky. It gets sort of almost surreal. And she hallucinates seeing certain things. For me, it's sort of part of her, like, aside from her consciousness, she's sort of deciding to go for it with Vronsky. I mean, I don't know why I sense that. I mean, probably because I know that that's what's going to happen. But there's something about this scene that was very fascinating to me. She is a fascinating character, and the good thing about it is that I don't have a complete grasp of her. I think her husband's really well portrayed as a good person, but also kind of an annoying person because he's very set in his ways. He's very much, and he's sort of almost a lot of times Tolstoy is translated as saying he has a mocking smile. So there's a little bit of a condescension thing going on, and him being oblivious to her, not really respecting him either. So they're really just not on each other's wavelength in a very fundamental way, and it's quite well done. So yeah, it's wonderful, and I'm loving it. Excellent. So yeah, my other big book, Recognitions, is going well but slowly, and I'm still loving it. One thing I wanted to say is, or emphasize, is how the characters are not likable, and they're also not really realistic. They are kind of like types, but because he's such a good writer, he makes their interactions fascinating and interesting, and you want to read more about them. So, and like I just finished a long scene where we have one of the evil guys called Rectal Brown, and he's kind of portrayed almost in a grotesque way. He's these big fleshy hands with rings with diamonds in them. I've never read a novel that focuses so much on hands and hand movements and what people do with their hands. It's really, really interesting. So the scenes with people with Rectals, the scene here with Rectal, and then the weird introverted artist forger Wyatt, and then a go-between dandy type Basil Valentine. They're all interesting. They're all fascinating. They're all not nice. This is not George Eliot. This is different, but it's good. And one thing is that these scenes are very choreographed, and you get sort of a lot of description of the furniture or how people interact and where they put things and what they do with this piece of paper that they keep. So it has it's a theatrical feel to it, these scenes of people interacting, and almost cinema like a film. But it's a weird, I keep thinking of Fassbinder, the German guy who I said once that I like. Weird choreographed interactions of people that are not exactly realistic, but they're fascinating to read, and you kind of play along with the movie in your head. The movie in your head aspect makes it very readable, even though it's a slow read because there's so much going on in terms of hinting so much about art, and I've already said that. So yeah, and I'm almost to the second part of this, which seems like I'm at the beginning, but I'm in the 200s. And, I'm going to try and ramp it up and get a little bit more done each week, but I'm still not going to be able to get that much reading done. That's just the way it is, but that's okay. As I've said before, relationships to books as well. It's not just about reading books. It's really not, for me at least. The other book that I thought I might be able to finish, but I didn't, but I am really, really enjoying, is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. Really well written, and really kind of this fun, although I know I think it's going to be a bit sadder, but so it's this main guy who is in Paris, and he's almost like a jock type, blonde hair, and he's describing being at this bar that is a sort of a bohemian, people in drag, gay bar, that kind of Parisian place. And what he seems to be really good at is the exhilaration of the titillation of people watching a relationship forming. And you get the sense that in this bar, people get a lot of enjoyment out of almost being voyeuristic towards what is going on with other people. And I could see that is kind of exciting, that you're in your own world doing your own things, but you're also witnessing other people to a certain point, and that's kind of part of the allure of being in a bar, being in a public place, and being a young person, flirting, all that stuff that these days is all done differently, well, these days anyway. But I think it's really well done, and he does a good job, and it's very readable. And it's also sort of, there's quite a bit of internal stuff. So the internal, not exactly stream of consciousness, but just his perspective on it is in the foreground. But it still has a nice flow to it. So I'm hoping to finish that one soon, because that's a shorter book, and I'm reading that on the Kindle, or well, iPad now, but so maybe I'll put a picture up here. So those are the main reads. I did want to, I sort of stumbled into a website that has led me to books again. And so the website is called Forbidden Histories, and it's run by an academic scholar, a German scholar who's, I think, kind of Cambridge based. And one thing that's interesting about it is this is an actual university scholar who does research at a university, wanting to have a public interface for his research and wanting to connect to the public. And I am kind of interested in, so when researchers or when professors decide to be public facing, and what that does to their how they're seen. I mean, a lot of historians do have books that are bestsellers. But so this is a person and so the website is very scholarly, and you get a lot of reading lists. And what it's all about is he's a historian who's interested in how occult stuff and magic and all of the sort of supernatural beliefs, how they have been evaluated by scientists and science, and not just scientists, social scientists, philosophers, psychologists, and how it's not good enough to just denigrate and dismiss magic, and if you look at how many very important, smart people, Madame Curie, Newton, and all these other scientists were obsessed with occult stuff as well, and so he approaches it from a sort of a historian's approach, so a social science approach to how science has evaluated occult phenomenon. And the videos are very good. I haven't. It's a little hard to sort of get an overview of where to start with all of this, but if you're interested in it, I would say the videos. I'm going to watch the videos. I haven't done all of them. And with each video, it's connected to reading lists about magic. So there's a bunch of videos about poltergeists. And the first one is an introduction to his sort of field of research. And now he's moving on to doing a reading group for sort of essential reads. He's quite scholarly in this, so there's a lot of reading to be done. And of course, nerdy Kathy had to go and get the book that they're reading, even though I don't know if I'll be able to keep up. I'm just going to have it in my library and dip into it. But it is actually really good if you're at all interested in the Greeks. I mean, I've only started it, but I like it. So I'm very interested in Greek stuff, and it's to my, eternal sadness that I didn't study the language. I really wish I could speak Greek, read ancient Greek, if only to really appreciate someone like Anne Carson. And anyway, but this is a good book. This is an older work about the Greeks and the irrational. So it's coming at this whole topic of the irrational and magic and occult beliefs from the Greeks' point of view. And so I'll put a link to the videos of the main thing. And then he's sort of funny. He has his last video where he's talked about a Reddit group, and then he has a little meme saying, "Oh, you're way too old to have Reddit," which is kind of funny. So I really think he's doing interesting things, Professor or Dr. Summer. And that's that. So yes, and one of the books in his reading group is a book that I have had and started to read, and so I dipped back into my interest in alchemy, so this is a good book. But I think my interest, I don't know, I'm interested in alchemy because of its connections in texts and also how it was used, sort of spiritual alchemy. I know Jung does stuff with that too, but I still think this is a good book, and I kind of put it down and I dip back into it, and I want to keep with it, if only slowly. And maybe this is the kind of book where I just need to take my time and, you know, take it as a class and make lists of it. So yeah, The Secrets of Alchemy by Lawrence Principe, who did some of the experiments himself, which is sort of funny when he kind of tells us that the experiment works better with urine than with vinegar. It's like, oh, okay. That's hilarious. I just think it's funny. But so yeah, alchemy. So those are those two super nerdy things that I'm dipping back into. Still kind of am hoping to get to Mansfield over here. She's on my shelf, and really, because poetry will always be there for me too. I think that's all I have to say. It was some other things I could talk about, but I think I'm going to hold off and come back to you next week, because I think it's already going to be pretty long. I have a couple of pieces that I'm putting together. Hope everyone is well, especially people who had a hard time last week because of the weather. I hope that the worst of the weather is over and that things will kind of slowly get better weather-wise, and maybe even pandemic-wise. And yeah, I thank you all for watching and subscribing, and please comment away on anything that is of interest to you. If you have any questions about academia, such as it were, I mean, I am an inhabitant of the ivory tower. I have been my whole life, even though I'm now not on the tenure track or anything, which in my case is a good thing. But ask away, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. As you know, I come from an American perspective on academia, I guess. Yeah, I hope to see you soon, and I hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. Bye-bye.